What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with hogsports.com. That's HAWGsports.com. Today on the show, we're going to talk Razorback freshmen. We're really going to get into how everybody's doing among the freshmen. Also going to talk, of course, about the quarterback battle, break down some things with recent player transfer, and really just get into all this fall camp stuff. So we'll jump into that, talk a little bit of recruiting. Pete Roulier is going to join us as well. All that and more on Hog Sports Live. All right, I want to go ahead and encourage everybody to go ahead and get your questions in for me and Pete. We'll be sure to answer those here as those get built up. And also, want to remind you to like, share, follow, and comment. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and give us a thumbs up if you like the content that we produce at Hog Sports Live. There's plenty of ways to watch and listen: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, be sure to throw us 5 stars and a review. If you're watching on Facebook Live, throw us that thumbs up now. If you're watching on YouTube, throw us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notifications bell so you're notified anytime that we have a new video. So, all right, I want to just jump into it real quick here. Obviously, elephant in the room, we'll go ahead and get into this, but Giovanni LaFrance has entered the transfer portal. Hog Sports, we broke that last night around 7:15, I guess. But Giovanni LaFrance is in the transfer portal, and it's a loss, a big loss or not a big loss, depending on how you look at it. You know, Giovanni was running with the 4th group. Last we saw him yesterday, running with the 4th group at inside linebacker at Mike. And so in that sense, it's not a huge loss. It is a loss in the sense that this is physically probably the best-looking linebacker. I mean, when you go out there, if you just pointed to guys and you said, who are your starting linebackers, you'd probably pick LaFrance. So I think there was a lot of hope that he was going to emerge and, end up having a good year, maybe like an Armand Watts type of deal where, like, it's redshirt junior year, you've been in the system for a while, he's always had injury issues, but you could obviously see this one coming down the pipe with him being 4th team and not making a move yet. But it is surprising to see that before the scrimmage that he would pop up on the transfer portal. So Giovanni LaFrance, it doesn't mean he's gone, but it does mean he's in the transfer portal. That puts Arkansas at 79 total scholarships, and that's including that's including Traylon Smith and Luke Jones, who as of now are supposed to be blue shirt candidates as far as I can tell, and counting ahead to next year, but they still have 2 scholarships remaining for the last class. So where does that go? Does it go to Sam Loy? Sam Loy, speaking of transfers, Sam Loy may be the most underrated transfer, underappreciated transfer right now at Arkansas. I mean, this kid is booming punts, which is fantastic to see. It's fantastic to see a punt turnover because special teams were such a big issue last year. Such a big issue when you consider how things started. Now, towards the middle end of the year, they got things figured out, but special teams was never a weapon for them. Okay, they were never like using special teams to help them win games. Not that they won a lot of games, but you know what I mean. If they got a punt off, it was just okay, average to below average. There was never just like a booming punt that rolled and flipped the field. Obviously gave up a lot of long returns early in the year and got some of that stuff figured out. But generally, like I said, it was never a weapon. I think they're going to be better on special teams. And I think part of that also is putting a lot on the back burner. And now, maybe not intentionally, but with a new offensive system and so much going in, new defense, all that stuff, you could almost see how special teams would get put on the back burner a little bit last year as they wanted to get everybody acclimated to the offense and get that going. So you could kind of see that. But there has been a big emphasis in camp on special teams, obviously. Some of the guys returning, Traylon Burks, who I'd love to see at punt return, and we'll get into Traylon a little bit later. Deion Stewart's working there, TQ Jackson, Kendall Catalon, who's the brother of Jalen Catalon. So those are the guys working punt return. I think you're in good hands with Devian Warren at kickoff return, and then really it's just about covering better. I mean, doing a better job covering. So hopefully they get that shored up. Barry Lundy Jr. is the special teams coordinator now. Didn't have that title last year. Giovanni LaFrance leaving, and Sam Loy's been a welcome addition, I think. All right, Arkansas released the 2020 football schedule. This is going to be the 7th year in a row that Arkansas will open SEC play away from Fayetteville. The 7th year in a row. A bit of a competitive disadvantage. You want to talk about a real competitive disadvantage, and we knew this was coming because of the way that they were structuring things with the Little Rock game. So the Texas A&M game, and let's see, no, that's this year. Never mind. This year it works well. Okay, sorry. Thinking ahead too far. So 2019, is the competitive disadvantage here because you only have 2 SEC games in Fayetteville this year. Only 2 because the Missouri game's in Little Rock and you're the home team in Arlington. So not a lot of SEC teams dealing with that. Most of them get 4 of them at home. Arkansas only gets 2. But next year it straightens out. It's not an advantage. It just gets normal again because Texas A&M is the away game, and I'm speaking of 2020, and Missouri is in Columbia. So 2020 schedule open with Kent State, then that Notre Dame game. That's going to be a big one. Obviously, I think a lot of Arkansas fans are going to travel to that one. I mean, how often do you get a chance to go to Notre Dame and watch a football game? So that'll be a big one on September 12th. Then you open SEC play the next weekend at Mississippi State. Not necessarily an ideal situation there. You'd rather have more of an easier opponent between those two. Then you get Texas A&M and Arlington. I mean, jumping right into it. Notre Dame, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and Arlington weeks 2, 3, and 4. And then you get Charleston Southern, and then your first SEC game in Fayetteville is not till October 10th against Alabama. And then the next weekend, October 17th against LSU. So they kind of flipped the script on that. It was like, Arkansas would get LSU after the Alabama game, and now LSU gets Arkansas after the Alabama game. So then you get a bye week. Then you're at Tennessee and Fayetteville. That'll be good. At Auburn, then Ole Miss and Fayetteville. So a nice little stretch there. UL Monroe, November 21st. It's way too late for a game like that. And then at Missouri. So that's not my favorite setup on a schedule. I like this year's schedule a lot just because you don't get the great home games and you lose the 2 games, but when you just talk about the balance of it, it breaks up a little better with the 2 bye weeks and stuff. So that's the schedule. Arkansas has also scheduled Rice for the 2021 season. They're going to play on September 4th, 2021. So old Southwest Conference rivalry renewed. Arkansas ought to take care of business in that one, though. All right, I want to jump into some post-practice stuff from yesterday. Okay, so first of all, we got the scrimmage on Saturday. As far as I know, we're not going to be allowed to go into the scrimmage. They haven't said anything specifically. They just said post-practice media availability in the spring. They really gave us about an hour to watch practices. Some of it was practice time, some of it was scrimmage time, but they gave us about an hour on Saturdays. I don't know if they're going to do that for fall camp, but first big scrimmage coming up Saturday, and obviously everything is all eyes are going to be on the quarterback situation. And just from my sources within that have seen more practice than I have, and I've probably seen 2.5 hours worth of practice. They give us 20 minutes. We get a little bit more than 20 minutes to watch practice every day. But from what I've seen, if you, like I was saying with Giovanni earlier, but if you were like to have the quarterbacks just up there throwing and you took somebody who didn't know anything about Arkansas and said, who's the starting quarterback, they would, all of them, 9 out of 10 times would point to Nick Starkel. The guy throws a very crisp spiral every single time. I have not seen him throw a wobbly pass yet. And I've seen that from the other quarterbacks. Now the ball may be getting where it needs to go, like with Ben Hicks, but as far as just throwing darts, Starkel. So yesterday they had the quarterbacks doing some goal line stuff, probably throwing from about 10-yard line, maybe a little further back, but throwing passes to the end zone. And that's a tough pass because you want to put some zip on it, but not too much. And when you're in that in-between is when things get a little tricky, when you don't get the right throwing motion, you don't throw a tight spiral. And most of the quarterbacks weren't. Most of them you get a little bit of like a little wobble at the end of the spiral, but every single one of Starkel's passes, and by every one I mean every single time, it's just a laser every time. The guy's got a great arm. Best thrower since probably Ryan Mallett, just in terms of no pressure, just standing there and throwing the ball. In terms of being consistent, putting it in the exact same spot over and over again. Now, that doesn't mean with a live rush in his face. We have yet to see that, and that's why Saturday's scrimmage is going to be so big. Now, they're not going to tackle these guys to the ground, but it's a big scrimmage to determine who's going to be the starting quarterback. I think everybody has the same idea. Hicks has been a guy that's played under Morris for 3 years at SMU, including a redshirt year. So 2 years as a starter at SMU under Morris, and spent last year without him, and then transferred to Arkansas. Was able to go through spring drills and get really a head start in that regard too, in terms of getting on the same page with some of these wide receivers. So he's got an advantage in that sense over Starkel and to a bigger degree KJ Jefferson, who I don't think is quite challenging for the starting job, but shows a lot of promise. I mean, KJ looks pretty smooth out there in terms of running and has thrown some nice balls. Has also thrown some, let some sail on him too. But I just think it's going to be a matter of time before it's before it's Starkle. We'll see. I mean, as I've said before, Danny Werfel didn't throw the prettiest ball in the world, okay? Tom Brady doesn't have the strongest arm in the NFL, so it doesn't mean that Nick Starkle is the starting quarterback just because he throws the prettiest pass and he's the tallest quarterback, okay? That's not what it means, but on the cuff, it's pretty impressive. All right, freshmen. Everybody loves talking about the freshmen. How many people we got on here? Oh, we got a good number. Got some comments developing over here. Okay, we'll get to those in just a little bit. So, Treylon Burks has flat out been impressive. Everybody got me here? Audio working good? I think we're good. So, Treylon Burks has been extremely impressive. All right, there's no question about it. All right, sorry. All right, I got it brought up here. There was a big discussion. Was that Tuesday? My days get mixed up in camp because I'm always like, just tell me the date because I don't know the day. I'm pretty sure it's Friday today. But Tuesday he had a catch that everybody's talking about, apparently, where he went up, caught the ball kind of behind him like an Odell catch and went spinning to the ground the way it's been described. For some reason, that hasn't come out. There was another video that came out Wednesday of him making a similar type catch, I'm told, where he went up, kind of reached back and pulled it down and may have kept on going on that one. But Burks is looking good. And I didn't know how, you feel like he's going to be great just because of everything he did in high school. And he has rare athleticism, 6'3", 223 pounds to be able to play like that. Looks like a linebacker. I think the linebacker talk is quieted down quite a bit because people are like, well, they're thin at linebacker. They got all these wide receivers. Why not put him there? But it's kind of like the McFadden to safety talk, if you ask me. This guy's got incredible hands, incredible athleticism, and Arkansas needs studs at wide receiver. Okay, this is what Joe Fouché said. He reminds me of Julio Jones, with his size and his ease and how he can catch the ball in any position. So definitely it would be Treylon Burks that stands out among the freshmen. I didn't see the one-handed catch today, but I definitely saw saw the catch yesterday on film. At first, we thought he didn't catch it, but we watched it on another video and a better angle, and he grabbed it. That's why I say he reminds me of Julio. I've only seen Julio do something like that, and he's just a freshman. He's going to do some big things also. Right now, Treylon Burks is running with the third team. That is not going to last very long. You can't keep that athleticism with the third group, and it's just a matter of time. I mean, it's just an acclimatization period. It's just, we got to get these freshmen, accustomed to running a college practice, accustomed to running this offense, but you cannot keep that athleticism on the sideline much longer. So expect for him to move up at least somewhere in the top 6. I mean, him and Trey Knox, among all the wide receivers, have really been, I think, the most impressive. Michael Woods has done some good things too, but when you talk about, just the wow factor, Treylon Burks and Trey Knox both have been very impressive. Good to see from Treylon Burks because he is coming off the ACL tear. It doesn't look like it's affecting him. Another guy coming off an ACL tear, Jalen Catalon. This guy had 2 pick sixes already. Had a pick 6 yesterday and had a pick 6 2 days before that, both on John Stephen Jones. 5'10", 196, working with the third group at safety, at free safety and nickel. That's not going to happen much longer. I mean, it's just a matter of time before he's working with the second group. I think when they go to a dime package, my guess would be that it's going to be Gregory Brooks Jr. and Jalen Catalon as the 2 extra D-backs. So I think Catalon's going to play a role for him. I'd like to see him get some punt return work. If you ever watched his video in high school, I mean, the guy has a knack for it. So wouldn't mind seeing him. And this is, several players, Dorian Gerald brought him up, him and Greg Brooks both. A lot of players brought up, just how strong he's been. Joe Fouché's another one that brought up Jalen Catalon. So Jalen Catalon standing out. And I'll tell you another guy before I jump into, because we did an article on both of those guys, but I haven't done one on Colin Clay. But man, just looking at Colin Clay, he goes about 6'5", 285 at defensive end. It's just like, wow, this dude is huge. I mean, I want to see him in full pads and go, tackle somebody and get blocked and stuff, see if he can help him this year. But man, just looking at the guy, it's just like there's a wow factor. We also had one on Mateo Soli solid through first 6 practices. And I will say Dorian Gerald has been singing this kid's praises since the day spring football started last, it was that March. Was that March, I guess? So he's been singing his praise. By the way, Dorian Gerald looks fantastic, 261 pounds. He's lost almost 30 pounds. And then right next to him, McTelvin and Geem has gained about 30 pounds. So they've switched probably about 50 pounds between them. They've gone a different direction. But back to Mateo, comes off the ball extremely strong. And really, Dorian will tell you, he'd like to say he's the best at getting to the quarterback, but he'll tell you that it's been Mateo Soli who's been pushing Gabe Richardson over there. Whether it's Gabe or Mateo Soli at that end spot, they're not going to play the defensive ends ideally more than 60% of the snaps. So it'll be 60-40, almost like a 1A, 1B type of thing with the second team. So, but Mateo Soli is going to be at least your backup right end. And then probably Jamario Bell working over there behind Dorian Gerald, who Jamario looks fantastic right now. Looks really good. All right. Got a few other things. A lot of praise for Gregory Brooks Jr. He's been balling, according to Joe Fouché. Malik Chavis did some good things. Malik had a really good pass breakup the other day. Devin Bush, we know that Devin is pushing Jarquez McClellan for that starting left corner spot. We mentioned Jalen Catalon, Torian Carter, and Enoch Jackson. There was a great video put out by the university the other day of Enoch Jackson and Marcus Miller going at it, and really I thought it was kind of a stalemate. You know, Marcus got kind of pushed in the crowd. Who knows what his feet hit, but initially Marcus gets the push on him, and then long-term Enoch gets it. But that was a great battle, I thought. You got to keep your feet moving. I think that's what ultimately cost Marcus Miller in that end, running into the crowd a little bit. But you got to keep those legs driving. Two good-looking defensive tackles there, along with Torian Carter, and then some big defensive ends I mentioned with Colin Clay and Eric Gregory, who was in a walking boot yesterday. So talked about Traylon Burks and Trey Knox a little bit. Bo Limmer has been working at center, doing working mostly with the third group there at center. Ricky Stromberg, who was out, he's up to about 270 pounds. You know, he got a sickness, so he lost some weight. Shouldn't have any. I mean, he was at 321 point in high school, so he shouldn't have any trouble putting on more weight. And Dylan Rathke was working at right tackle with the second group yesterday. So just a few things there on the youngsters. Did I miss anybody? Let's see. Shamar Nash has done some good stuff. I wouldn't say that Shamar has quite stood out on the level that some of the other wide receivers have, and that's probably could say the same for TQ Jackson, although he's bigger than you think he is, even though he's listed at 6'4", 195. I'd say he's probably all of that. But those two guys have talent. I just think that we're maybe talking about a little bit different athlete, and not that those guys aren't good athletes, but a little bit different athlete when you're talking about Traylon Burks and Trey Knox. Hudson Henry's been out. He's had a head issue, so Hudson has been out. But again, he reminds me, he's not as big as C.J. O'Grady is right now. C.J. probably goes 250-something. I think Hudson's 240-something. But he reminds me a lot of C.J. O'Grady, especially when he first arrived in terms of talent on the field. Two very similar players there. I think Hudson's going to help him. Doesn't help him missing time because it is a difficult position to learn. Amonte Spivey has done some good things. I don't know that he's done anything that I would say makes him surpass the other guys. But again, we haven't watched them tackle live. Or I've always said stuff that you can tell by running back early. Our players just kind of bouncing off of him, and we'll see that if that happens with Amonte Spivey. Hopefully, we'll get some live scrimmage action sometime before the season starts. KJ Jefferson, as I mentioned earlier, throwing the ball very nicely. I thought that he had a little bit of a hitch in high school, and I think he's kind of corrected that. I don't know if they've worked with that, but it doesn't seem as prominent. Not that it was like extremely noticeable, but it doesn't seem as prominent. I think he's putting good velocity on the ball. He's not putting as tight a spiral every time like Nick Starkel is, but I think he's throwing the ball okay. I mentioned Bo Limmer earlier. Brady Latham has done something. He saw some backup work at left tackle also. So Brady Latham, I've heard behind the scenes that they think that not right now, but in the future, that Brady Latham could be a potential starter for him. I mentioned Dylan Rathke a minute ago. Of course, the junior college guys, Myron Cunningham, they're working him both left and right, some with the first, some with the second, some with the third team, just kind of all over in the same with your Boise and Moana. I do think that Cunningham's going to end up starting for him. Ricky Stromberg, we talked about. Zach Zemos is skinny at 6'4", 210, but very athletic, and I'm told by some people they think that he might be a real player for him too. I could actually see him playing some on special teams for him this year. Marcus Miller, as we mentioned, Marcus looks good, 6'5", 300-pound kid. Enoch Jackson, 6', 280. I think he's listed at 300 on the current roster, but I don't know if I would say he's quite 6 foot. I think he's a little bit under 6 foot. Torian Carter came back from a little bit of a shoulder. We mentioned Mateo Soli. Zach Williams has done some good things too. I mean, he's got to add some more weight before I think he starts contributing. We talked about Eric Gregory and Colin Clay, Devin Bush, Gregory Brooks Jr., Jalen Catalon, and we mentioned Malik Chavis also. Okay, I think it's time to bring in my man Pete Roulier. So, let's get him on the horn. Hold on just one second.
How we doing, Trey?
What's up, Pete? How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right.
Good deal. So I just kind of ran down a few things with, where the true freshmen stand right now. And, just talked about, we went over a few things like the schedule and for 2020, Rice being added to the schedule for 2021. Mm-hmm. So we've gone over a few things and just kind of wanted to ask you your impressions so far of the first 6 practices, I guess, of fall camp.
Well, I think a lot of things have gone the way we thought they were going to go in terms of what we predicted. Starting with the main story, the quarterback battle, Nick Starkel looks every bit as good as we thought he was going to be with the effortless throws and the tight spiral and just his size. He looks like an SEC-style quarterback, and Ben Hicks has been taking the first group reps. Mm-hmm. And he looks about the same as he did this spring, which isn't bad. He's getting the job done. So that looks about the same. KJ Jefferson's been impressive at quarterback.
I think the difference, Pete, with the two quarterbacks is just looking at, Starkel's got the talent edge. That's been obvious, but, you never know really what you got until the bullets start flying, and that's going to be big on Saturday scrimmage.
Absolutely, yes. But like you said, just from day one, just watching all the quarterbacks of the football, you can definitely tell that Nick Starkel has a talent edge over every quarterback in that room by a pretty large margin. And then another impression is just the freshmen, like you probably said you've mentioned. Mm-hmm. Their size and their strength and their talent has been pretty evident so far. Especially those receivers, just watching them run routes and get along with those quarterbacks it's a lot more impressive than anything that we saw last year, I think, in my opinion.
I would also clarify before you say that he's got a clear edge and talent above all the other quarterbacks, because we haven't seen, KJ brings the legs to the equation, and Nick doesn't really have that. But KJ throws a pretty good ball. It hasn't been as crisp and tight and quite the same velocity, but good velocity on it. So I don't know if I would say he's got a clear edge on every quarterback but KJ's certainly got, further to come as far as just being a true freshman.
That's a good point. And McTelvin Agim did mention that he's probably one of the scarier quarterbacks just because he has the ability to take off at any time. Mm-hmm.
Pete Roulier joining us here. You can read all of Pete's stuff at hogsports.com, hawgsports.com. Pete has been with us since February, I guess, so a good amount of time. Covers baseball, basketball, recruiting, chips in on recruiting, and, of course, spring football. It's kind of all hands-on deck stuff. If you want to read his stuff, go to hawgsports.com. Does a kind of a mix of some free content and some VIP stuff. I want to remind everybody again, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, take a minute and throw us 5 stars. Throw us a review if you like the content that we do. Right now, I think we're rated 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, like 134 reviews, and we'd certainly like to have more. Available on Stitcher and Spotify, Megaphone as well. Facebook Live, we always stream live, hence the name Hog Sports Live. And, of course, YouTube, hit that notifications bell and subscribe also. So, Pete, any freshmen that you would say stand out above the rest right now? I kind of gave my opinion a minute ago.
Yeah, you went with KJ Jefferson, or maybe you said somebody else before. Let me think about that for a second. I think probably Treylon Burks right now stood out. Is that the guy that you mentioned earlier?
I mentioned Treylon Burks. I mentioned Trey Knox, of course, Treylon Burks, Hudson Henry, Jalen Catalon, Mateo Soli, Colin Clay, Gregory Brooks, Devin Bush. There's been a lot of them, man. It's good that there's been a lot of them. I think the phrase that'll get you is they're loaded with talented young talent. Young talent is like a reason to get excited and a reason to be concerned, because
I know exactly what you're saying. Did you mention Marcus Miller?
Marcus Miller, I talked about him a little bit, and he's been impressive too. With those big dudes, I want to see them in full gear, going live. And we just haven't really seen a whole lot of live stuff in the time that we've been allotted.
Well, so how about this? From the live stuff that we have seen, the media has seen, I think the one that stood out the most is Jalen Catalon. Getting some playing time at safety. He's done a really good job, and he's got that ball hawk mentality. He's taken 2 to the house. We saw 1 in practice, and he looks the part. His guy's older brother there too returned kicks, Kendall Catalon. So there's 2 newcomers to the Catalon name.
Yeah.
But Jalen Catalon looks like he can play some ball. I don't know about if it's going to be immediately, but that secondary is so young, and they're going to have somebody contribute. That's a freshman. Greg Brooks is most likely going to start at that nickel spot, and Jalen Catalon's probably going to work some nickel as well. So
I think
probably going to see him next year.
I think Catalon is going to end up being, working with the second group and probably start in their dime package when everything's said and done. I mean, you got to give everybody a look. There's a seniority of it as well. Guys coming back and they were in a role, so it's almost like you kind of got to earn it as freshmen. But it's been pretty obvious. I mean, the kid has 2 pick sixes in back-to-back practices. We know what Chad Morris thinks of him as a recruit, calling him one of the top 5 high school players he's ever seen. So I think it's just a matter of time before we see Catalon. We're going to see Catalon, Greg Brooks, Devin Bush, and Malik Chavis. And am I leaving somebody else out? But we're going to see all those freshman D-backs this year. It's going to take 12 freshman D-backs just to get through the season. So we're going to see all of them. I mean, there's 12 scholarship players. So,
speaking of the secondary, the 2 guys that are playing corner right now, the sophomores Jarquez McClellan and Monteric Brown, have really impressed me.
Yeah, Brown.
It seems like
especially.
they've impressed really
Yeah.
everybody else on the team. Davion Warren said something really interesting yesterday. He was talking about lining up, how the receivers lined up. That McClellan and Brown have been telling them, I know exactly what's coming just by the way they lined up. And for Brown to be able to do that as a safety, move to corner already, that shows the maturity that he's got as a cornerback.
Yeah. Also, the problem with that is you're going against each other, and you get to a point.
Absolutely.
You get to a point in camp where you know all the offenses plays, and because you're not really working on an opponent, we're not working with a scout team. You're working against Arkansas's offense running the same plays that they've been running since the spring, and the wide receivers' tendencies and stuff. So, there's a bit of a disadvantage in that sense too, just going against each other so long. But it won't be too long before they, start maybe getting a little bit of work on some future opponents and stuff. But Monteric has drawn some good reviews. He had 6 interceptions in the spring and hasn't had any interceptions yet. But he's chomping at the bit too. I thought it was interesting that him and McClellan are roommates and really just hit it off on that January 20th official visit weekend back in 2017. Been like best buds since then. So and now they're starting across from each other at cornerback.
And that's got to help Brown with McClellan being able to help him out with the cornerback, especially after that move from safety.
Yeah, let's see. Matt Bohannon says, I don't know. I know they haven't tackled you much, but how has the physicality of practice look compared to last year? I mean, I think they've done some things like that, but I would say the thing that stands out to me versus last year, it felt a little chaotic last year. Like players didn't know quite what to expect from the coaches or where to go. And, even Morris kind of was feeling his way around first practices. And so the difference is this year, everybody seems to know where to go. I feel like there's more of a community connection feel. Like the players are enjoying themselves more. Last year I felt like more like you had a bunch of players out there. And now I feel like you've got a team out there. And it's been different to me. What do you think, Pete?
Well, yeah, that's a huge difference, and you're right. Practice has gone smooth. If I try to think of something that hasn't exactly gone the way I thought it was going to go, let me see. I think that the offensive line, with that Noah Gallen injury, I think the only confusion is who they're going to put at that right tackle spot. So they've been trying out some different things there. But in terms of the practice running smooth and players knowing their positions, I think it's gone really well.
Yeah, I think they lost a starter probably with Gatlin. With losing Gatlin. But the good news is for them, if you can put good news on it, they got worse losing Gatlin, but they're able to absorb that a little bit more. They've got some more offensive tackles, some more candidates to compete versus last year where you're talking about like 8 guys total. And so now you still got, 15 guys left after you lose Gatlin. So a better situation. Matt Bohannon says, haven't heard much about Bumper other than he's starting. How's he look? With the linebackers, it's difficult to say anything unless they get an interception right now. Those guys are about tackling, right? So Bumper is the projected starter at weak side linebacker, and they've got Hayden Henry behind him and Grant Morgan behind Dijon Harris. But it's just hard to say anything, really. I mean, he hasn't had any interceptions when we've been out there, but really it's about
tackles. All the
tackles.
other linebackers at media day,
Mm-hmm.
Grant Morgan, Scuda, and Hayden Henry. It's about kind of the expectations that Gunner has or Bumper has as a sophomore. And they really have been impressed with his work ethic through the summer. And like you said, there's not much that we can draw from the first practices, but just the work ethic that he has, and he knows the expectations. They believe that he can get it done, so they have a lot of faith in him.
Here's an interesting question from Galen Brown. In the 60s, we were in the top 10 a lot. As you can see, I'm old. last great coach was Holtz. Is the new coach that good, or will I die at the bottom of the charts?
Jeez.
That's pretty grim.
Pretty gruesome.
Yeah, pretty grim. Well, Galen, I can't tell you yet. I do feel like they're trending in the right direction. I think that they may end up having a better team than Ole Miss and maybe another team. And we've talked about what it means to take a step forward. First of all, it means not getting just slaughtered in games like the first quarter of games, and not showing up to a game like you did in Missouri or you did at Mississippi State. So that's the first step: winning the 4 non-conference games and not getting slaughtered, but also winning some games. I think that you really, to say this program is heading in the right direction, you cannot go 0-8 again in the SEC. You got to win some games. So there's Ole Miss in week 2. A little later, you got Kentucky midseason. Then towards the end of the year, you got, Mississippi State and Missouri. Those are all games that I would point to as possibilities. Now, win 2 of those, and you get to a bowl game, and win your 4 non-conference games. There's no excuse this year for not winning those 4 non-conference games. I think last year's team probably could have beat these 4 non-conference teams. So not necessarily a step in the right direction just by winning those 4.
No, I agree. And then if you want to get into it, the ones that I point to are Ole Miss and Missouri, especially, and then Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of those games don't really feel winnable at this point, unless you see something really special out of Nick Starkel. If
Mm-hmm.
Nick Starkel gets the nod and he becomes something that maybe is better than anybody expected, because he looks the part and he has the talent. So if he can become that top tier SEC quarterback, then maybe you win some of those games. But I think Ole Miss is that one that's just the most important, just because it's in week 2.
Yeah, week 2, and you talk about a boost of confidence for a team that has really struggled and just put a lot of work in the off season. Right now, I think that's with Giovanni, that's 32 players that have left the program since Morse got here. A lot of those players probably needed to move on. I do feel like there's just better cohesion out there with the team. And Trey Ballard asked, is the offense going to be serviceable, and will they be able to march down the field and get the last score that we will likely need to win close games? So I think they're going to be better. I think they've got some throw-it-up guys. Like Traylon Burks is a throw-it-up guy. Trey Knox, throw it up to him and let the guy make a play. And Arkansas didn't have that last year. I think one thing that you have to hope, Trey, is that Arkansas's quarterback situation was so bad last year that it just made everything look worse. That's what you're hoping, because Arkansas has upgraded that position. They've upgraded pretty much everything on offense. I think the offensive line is going to be better, even though they lost 3 starters. I think some new blood was needed. I've said that plenty of times. But as far as marching down the field and winning some games now, Arkansas is playing in the SEC, okay? And they're going to run into some teams that are more talented and more experienced than them, teams that are used to and know how to put together a fourth quarter and go win a game. Okay, so that's what you're going to run into. What I say for taking progress, I said get you 2 SEC games. There's maybe you run into a team that's running through some turmoil or had a bunch of injuries or something just falls right, something like that, aside from those 4 teams that I mentioned where you can maybe get a win. But get you 2 games in the SEC, and that's step forward. And then also, I'm not saying that you have to win a lot of games, or win close games in the fourth quarter, because you are going to run into these teams that know how to get it done. It is a learning process to figure out how to win a game in the fourth quarter, but get to the fourth quarter. That's a start. Get to the fourth quarter. Don't lay down in the first half of a game and it's just over, like it was so many times last year. Thoughts, Pete?
Yeah, he was talking about if they have what it takes to go down and win in a fourth quarter drive. I think Arkansas has the weapons. I don't think that's a question at this point. You can name a bunch of them. C.J. O'Grady, guys out of the backfield that can make plays. And then they got the wide receivers. And then hopefully they'll have the quarterback. So I think it all comes down to the offensive line, and really what matters about the offensive line is, like you said, can they even get to the fourth quarter? So I think it all boils down to, if he wants to see a smooth offense and the offense the way that Chad Morris wants to run it, they're going to have to get the offensive line going.
So Mark Rodriguez says, do we have a punter or kickoff, or do we have a punter or kick-off kicker yet? That's an interesting way to put it, Mark Rodriguez. They do have a punter. Sam Lloyd's his name. Very pleased to see him out there kicking the ball. Arkansas finally has a guy that can hang it up there, so that's good. And then as far as kicker and kickoff guys,
Limper said he and Coach True were in the weight room all summer long, just working on strictly getting that leg strength up so he could get it into the end zone.
Yeah, Limpert has improved his leg strength each and every year and has been a very good field goal kicker for him so far. So Joey Mark says, Burks is a beast. Can't wait to see him go off. Everyone points to Knox, but I'm more excited about Burks. I think you should be equally excited about those two. It'll be interesting to see back and forth which one of those guys has the better season, but I think both of them are going to have a pretty decent year for a freshman. Freshman record for catches is 37. I think we might see that go down this year by one of those guys.
Another common theme in that
go ahead.
Another common theme in that receiver room especially is those young guys. They have definitely 100% elevated the older guys' game.
Mm-hmm.
And it is constant competition between those receivers out there. And having guys like Nick Starkel and Ben Hicks that actually get him the ball, like, it kind of allows for an even competition. It's not like one guy is having to play with a crappy quarterback that's a backup, and they're not getting the same, like, quality reps. Everyone's getting quality reps, and guys like Jordan Jones, Davion Warren, Deion Stewart, they're all stepping up their game, and you can definitely tell. So having those young guys in there definitely elevates that.
Some good discussion back and forth between Andrew Sims and Joey Marks about the difficulty it might be to tell Hicks that he's not going to win the starting job. I mean, it might be. He was a starter before. He left a starting position to come and play in the SEC. Chuck Weaver says, I don't really care about how many games the Hogs win. You will when it comes down to it, Chuck. You know that. Would love to see them win every game, but I just want improvement from last year, and I'm sure we will have a safe and fun season. Yeah, I mean, Chuck,
I understand what he's saying.
Chuck knows he's going to be screaming at his television in a close game, if they lose at the end there. So,
absolutely.
Let's see what else we got. Is Boyd 100%, and how's that O-line coming? Boyd looks 100%. I mean, he doesn't have anything on his shoulder or anything, so I haven't seen him get hit live yet, but according to the coaches, he's 100%. Lane Davis says, where will Ladarius Bishop fit in this year? Do you see him on special teams? I think he'll play on special teams, but also he's going to be your backup right cornerback. I mean, he's going to back up Monteric Brown. That's kind of an interesting dynamic. You have his roommate, Jarquez McClellan, starting opposite him, and then his old high school teammate, Ladarius Bishop, backing him up.
Yeah, this is definitely really interesting, and I feel like Monteric Brown's really going to be a guy to watch this season because there's been so much talk about him. Mm-hmm. And then the situation just fits for him. You said it, even like off the field. Roommates with Jarquez McClellan. He's got Ladarius Bishop backing him up. It just seems like it's the right fit for him to be at Arkansas and furthermore playing cornerback instead of safety.
Pete, who we haven't talked to in the secondary yet is Cam Curl. We haven't had him in the media room, and his dad, Coach Greg Curl, just popped in and said there's a lot more cohesiveness, confidence of knowing what's going on. And that is something also that Joe Fouché said to me, is just the communication back there is on a different level than it has been in the past. And that's where it starts, man. You've got to be good communicators, and not just like verbal communication, but non-verbally, knowing what your man's going to do next to you, And so, Cam is kind of the older statesman back there right now as a junior 2-year starter, which is, it's an overall young secondary.
And you can tell they hang out. They put in the work this summer just by the way that they were ready to go day one.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably credit to Cam Curl, who's the older guy, who's been doing it for a long time, actually knows what to do at the cornerback positions. He played cornerback before. Mm-hmm. And you can tell he probably gathered those guys around and got them up to speed. So, yeah, you can definitely tell there's a difference back there.
David Shaw says Pete and Danny sound a lot alike on the radio. I guess that's a Rising Batesville thing. You're from Batesville, Danny's from Rising. Is there any kind of those towns aren't anywhere near each other, but I guess the same Arkansas accent.
Well, a lot of people say that Danny sounds like a coach, right?
Yeah.
Does that mean I sound like a coach? Maybe I missed my calling.
Yeah, coaching's a tough profession. It is a tough profession to be in. There was a podcast the other day talking about like 24/7 sports. Why people who work in recruiting, analysts there, why aren't they coaches if they know so much about evaluating and stuff? And I'm just like, or why don't they work in the recruiting department at the university? And I'm just like, man, that's a tough job. I mean, first of all, Barton Simmons, like for example, makes a really good salary and has probably lived in the same city the last 15 years, whereas Arkansas's recruiting director has. Like Taylor Edwards, for example, he's at Maryland right now. He was at Arkansas for less than a year, and then he was at Alabama, before that. So 2.5 years, he's at 3 different places, and coaches move around so much. It's a tough, like they make a lot of money, but man, you're at the mercy of the head coach, whether or not he's going to take you to the next level, moving all over the place. If you're a good coach, you're going to move every 2 to 4 years. It's a tough profession.
Yeah, and there's not a doubt in my mind, if you want to get into that, Barton Simmons could be a coach somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of the smarter guys in the whole entire universe.
Well, yeah, Barton played at Yale. He played quarterback.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Was he a quarterback or safety? I can't remember what position he played.
I thought he was a fullback.
I don't know. I don't remember what he was, but I know he played at Yale.
Yeah, and who wants to tell Ben Hicks after he moved his life up to Arkansas that, hey, man, you're not going to be the guy if that situation does arrive? That's another tough thing that they get paid the big bucks to do, but you don't want to. It's a hard profession, man.
Yeah, it is. Grayson Falia, I hope I said that right. Grayson Falia says, I think KJ Jefferson gets the experience in this garbage time against non-conference teams. Well, first you got to hope there's some garbage time, first of all, and also other garbage time isn't the other way around. But I think that KJ gets some action. I mean, he can play. They can play him in 4 games. I mean, we were talking about that too with defensive linemen. They have probably 5 defensive linemen that are ready to go outside the freshmen, and you deal with injuries and stuff. But if they work it right with Enoch Jackson, Torian Carter, Marcus Miller, maybe they could get it where they could play each of those guys no more than 4 games and get through the season with redshirting them all. I think that would be a benefit. But I think they'll try to redshirt KJ Jefferson. I think that's a smart move, but maybe get him some action if that's possible.
Yeah, Jonathan Marshall's going to be key in getting those guys those red shirts, and losing Briston Guidry in the offseason, that kind of hurts. So you might have to play maybe pick one of those defensive tackles that's not going to be able to use that red shirt.
All right, Preston Roy says KJ starts. Preston Roy is in love with KJ Jefferson. He has been all about him ever since the last one. If KJ starts at least 6 games, Arkansas has a chance to go bowling. If not, ... David Shaw says, I feel like KJ will get in 4 games. I think you're right, David Shaw. I think Arkansas.
When you watch the videos that we put out of KJ Jefferson, it's hard not to fall in love with him.
I mean, he's got a lot of talent. There's no question. It's just how far down the road is it? And I've always said it's going to take this offense to the next level. I think a dual threat quarterback is your best option, but that doesn't mean it's the only option. I mean, people used to say with Bobby Petrino that Ryan Mallett was the perfect quarterback for his system. Well, what was Lamar Jackson? Was he not the perfect quarterback for that system? So
right. No, I see what you're saying.
But at the same time, I think there's room for both quarterbacks. People always say that dual threat quarterbacks are, you have to have a dual threat quarterback to beat Alabama and stuff. Well, Alabama just got whipped the worst they've ever had by, a drop back passer who's probably a next level talent and everything. But you don't just have to have a dual threat quarterback. Having said that, I do think this system would work best considering the players that Arkansas has, unless they were to get to Clemson's level where they're, have just monsters up front holding the line for them. KJ is a diamond of the rough, says Preston Roy. Just loves him. I like him too, Preston. I think you like him more than I do. Jimmy Davis says, what was your thoughts on where we will end up recruiting at the end of the year? Right now, I think they're 30th. They got a chance to end up in the top 25 somewhere. They're fighting that 2-10. I think a lot could depend on that, how things go early, particularly that Ole Miss game. Why redshirt him? They'll need him, says Preston Roy. I mean, I think if they end up going with KJ, it's going to be there's been a lot of trouble with the guys that they brought in. I mean, they brought in both those guys to compete for the job. Mike Posey says, I'm 69, same situation as the other guy, not many years to see them in the top 10. Yeah, I hear you. All right, Pete, we've gone long here. We're 44 minutes in. As always, I always ask you if you got any final words of wisdom.
Yeah, I was going to go ahead and mention a breakout guy that I think that a lot of people are talking about, and that's Jordan Jones. He had that awesome freshman season. Things kind of didn't go his way as a sophomore, but this fall I've been kind of watching him and he's catching with his hands, it's not his body. And a lot of people, that was his downfall, was catching with his body, not his hands. So being the fastest player on the team, catching with his hands, I mean, that's a loaded receiver room. It's not like he's going to start or anything, but maybe expect a few big plays out of Jordan Jones.
All right, Pete. Anything else?
That's it, man.
All right.
Good
Appreciate
stuff.
you coming on. All right. That's Pete Roulier with hogsports.com. Pete does a great job for us. I want to go ahead and remind everybody there's plenty of ways to watch and listen, and go to hogsports.com for all your Razorback recruiting news. And I want to thank everybody who just signed up. We ran a big promotion just recently, but it's still a great deal right now at hogsports.com. You can get 30% off if you sign up for an annual subscription right now, or you can get your first month for $1 if you want to choose to go that route. So there's plenty of options there. But since we made the move 15 months ago, I think we've increased the site size 44% from where we were at Rivals. We're now the number 16th largest site in the 24/7 Sports Network, which Arkansas shouldn't be there. And it's a testament to everybody joining on. And we want to work and make sure you know that we're going to do the best coverage of Arkansas. And yeah, we're going to be there for you. Appreciate everybody for jumping on to that. Remind you one more time, Facebook Live. Throw us that thumbs up if you're watching on Facebook Live right now. If you're watching on YouTube, also throw us a thumbs up. Make sure you interact with the video, subscribe, and hit that notifications bell so you're notified every time that there's a new video. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, take a second right now that the show is over and flip and throw us 5 stars. Throw us a review if you like the content. Let other people know to tune in. Help us get our reach out there. Same deal with Spotify and Stitcher. So that's everything right now. No media availability at practice today. We've got scrimmage tomorrow, but that'll do it for Hog Sports Live. Thanks, everybody, for watching.